Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
BrainShare Business Mentors proudly presents BrainShare.us, the ultimate business education platform, delivering the proven systems, processes, tools, and knowledge that empower you to build the business of your dreams. With 13 high-powered courses encompassing over 240 lessons accessed online on your schedule. Running a business is the hardest thing you'll ever do. We've helped thousands of business owners gain the leadership, communication, and business skills needed to build the business of their dreams. We can help you. Choose your learning path. Scuba Squad is the premier membership program for today's business leaders with access to all BrainShare material and double our money-back guarantee. BrainShare Basics, the ultimate business framework course, a hard-hitting 13-week program to lay the necessary foundation to build the business of your dreams. Or take individual courses as you need them. Every course has dozens of lessons, with video, practical exercises, precise documentation, and the opportunity for direct feedback from a BrainShare mentor. All programs have our exclusive 30-day money-back guarantee. No questions asked, don't wait. Choose your path and start today.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business and life with a purpose, serving others, and yes, achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. How will you serve today, and what impact will you create today? I want you to think about as you talk to this incredible guest. Wait till you hear what he's got to say. This is going to blow you away. I'm blown away already. We haven't even started. I want to thank my two sponsors, BrainShare.us, Drive Business Success and Sustainability with BrainShare Business Mentors, where your business flourishes and your vision comes to life. Check out the link in the show notes, and pitchdb.com. Be a guest in over 3 million podcasts, speak at over 11,000 conferences, and much more. Build your thought leader platform with incredible opportunity to show who you really are. With that being said, as I say, make an impact in your world. Impact in sports it's a multi-trillion-dollar business, whether it's high school, college sports. College players are getting paid, but they get injured. And injuries could cost people thousands, if not millions of dollars, and how to recover, how to do the right things and make decisions. I wouldn't know what to do. If I had a child, I would go to this guest and go, hey, I need help, and hire him. That's how much I believe in what he's doing. Brian, after that monologue and that introduction, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Let's jump into it. I'm a parent, got this great quarterback. He's, got 50, 60, what they call recruiting, letters from major colleges. And halfway through my season, boom, my knee gets hit and I'm out. A lot of high schools I've seen, the training staff usually intern, or they're not, and nothing wrong with it, it's just money. They can't afford it. What does Brian do for me as that parent if I reach out to you and go, hey, got Tony Ramona, my quarterback, and he had this major injury?
Well, first of all, Steve, I'm willing to work with just about anybody on any budget. And, that includes doing a lot of pro bono work, depending on the situation as well. So I don't ever let that factor into the initial decision on whether I'm going to move forward working with a client. But, you bring up a really good scenario there, because that happens all the time, all through the country, any type of sport, you name it. And those are situations where it's really critical to be able to make the right educated decision as you start the course of your care when you're dealing with an injury. And so I'm hopeful that what I'm doing creates a great impact, but I'm hopeful that those people reach out to me and we can get started at that exact moment, because each little time, each moment at the beginning is crucial to taking that next step and getting the best outcome possible.
Yeah, I like that. And even in college, I'm thinking, Brian, you would be that good third party. You know, I'm talking to my trainer in college. They, what do they call? Oh, you were one. What do they call them? The head trainer, right?
Athletic trainers. Yep.
Athletic. Thank you. Sorry, audience. I'm so excited. I can't even think straight. But even there's a scenario where you get this diagnosis or this suggestion. You, as that third party outside, would be a great resource, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I still work full time as a certified physician assistant. I still held my athletic training credential up until a few years ago. And my 9 to 5 job, my day to day is I'm working for a hospital institution. I'm taking care of orthopedic patients. We're doing the things that we're trained to do. By stepping outside of that box and doing my own consulting thing, it allows me to work more one-on-one with the client, with the athlete, to basically serve as their independent, objective kind of observer and educator and guidance counselor. Basically, I'm there to serve my client. I'm not there to work for the hospital institution that I do my 9 to 5. I'm not there to work for the surgeon's office or the hospital operating room staff. I'm there purely to serve the needs of my client. And so that allows me to be a lot more objective than I would normally be in my normal 9 to 5 role. But a lot of times that's what people need. They need a third party, second set of eyes to come in and say, okay, here's what we know. Let's take a look at everything we've got here in front of us and figure out the best way to attack this. Let's not make any rush decisions. Let's see what kind of information we can gather so that we can put it all together into a cohesive, understandable format, and then follow the best path forward.
I love that, because the word comes to my head is agenda, Brian. The agenda from the college, the high school, the doctor, the physical therapist. There's all agendas there, and I can imagine it's hard to weave through and go through all that muck to figure out what's the right decision, right?
And I don't, obviously I've been in this field a long time, over 20 years in total. And I don't, I've worked with some great people, some amazingly smart individuals, talented surgeons and physicians and PAs and trainers. And this is not at all to undermine anything that they do on a day-to-day basis. This is purely just to provide an additional service to clients, especially these athletes at these elite levels, who are facing potentially career-threatening injuries or altering injuries at the least that could potentially change their path and their way going forward, and could significantly affect their ability to monetize and generate money and income and live out a dream. I mean, so while I appreciate everything that they're doing, this is just taking it to another level.
Yeah, and what you're doing is, people are like, well, there's another layer we're adding to it, but that one decision could make thousands, and I said earlier before the show, millions of dollars lost.
Yeah.
Let's do ROI. I know it's an elephant I don't like, but it's the elephant in the room. You got, like I said, this Tony Ramona star quarterback. If I don't talk to you and I make a wrong decision and they do surgery and it fails, well, the draft's happening right now. We're talking in the NFL draft. How many of those guys got pushed down and lost millions of dollars because of an injury? Kool-Aid McKinstry is a perfect example. I was just listening. If you're NFL fans, he's a cornerback from Alabama, and he dropped down because of an injury.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, Steve, because I actually the last 2 nights I was just doing a live NFL draft podcast stream from right here in North Carolina, where I currently live, with a group of guys that I regularly do podcasting stuff with. And in fact, their niche is kind of fantasy football, but they do a big draft show every year. And they brought me on as kind of like the injury guy, which I do for them regularly throughout the season as well. And ironically, McKinstry was one of the athletes we talked about. And, he had a very simple, very straightforward type of injury that was found during the medical combine. And it's really not a big deal, to be honest with you. It happens quite a bit. But, some executives, some staff, or some people just listening, from their comfort of their home might hear that and they get triggered, or they think, oh my God, he fractured a bone in his foot and they didn't know and he had to have surgery. That's terrible. That could change his career. And in fact, this is one of the more innocent types of injuries one could possibly have. And most guys will make a full recovery. So I'm hopeful that that did not affect his draft status or allow him to drop in the draft. If teams were looking at that and using that as a reason, then they were misinformed.
And right there, that story, Brian, tells me and tells you, audience, this guy knows what the heck he's talking about. Because let's take that in a high school player. My coach is thinking, the trainer saying, oh, you're done. You broke your foot. And you can come in and go, wait a minute. Here's the prognosis, right? Am I thinking correctly? That's where
exactly. And that's really the issue. And that's really where things a lot of times get lost in communication, or maybe they, clients or patients will fail to ask a specific question, or they'll misinterpret the answer or response, and they'll get an idea in their head of what the timeline actually is and what the prognosis is when they may be misunderstanding the actual information that they received. So yeah, that's exactly what I come in and do.
Did you say you're a podcast, or you were a guest on a podcast?
Well, so both, Steve. I actually have my own podcast called The Injured List.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's called The Injured List. I've been doing it for about 4 years. On that podcast, I do have guests on. Most of my guests are either former athletes or healthcare professionals who work in the field of sports medicine to discuss various topics. A lot of times when I have the athletes on, we're talking about an injury that they sustained throughout their career, how it affected them moving forward, how they dealt with it and got through it. So it's just some really interesting stuff. I've had some really cool guests on, former Olympian speed skater I had on, Kelly Gunther. I've had a 5-time female world karate champion on who tore her ACL. I've had Elisa Au. I've had Marcus Ogden, who's a former lineman in the NFL, brother of Jonathan Ogden, Hall of Famer with the Ravens. I mean, the list goes on, and I've been doing it now for a while, and I do guest appearances on some other sports talk shows as a injury expert, where they bring me on to talk about injuries and stuff, mostly in fantasy.
Yeah, and I'm a big fantasy guy. We're going to talk a little bit after the show, so we got a lot to talk about. It's great to have that synergy of podcast host and understanding each other, because this is a message, whether you like sports or not. I know some people are like, quick story, I'll say it. My wife's son, my stepson was, wanted to play football, and they came to me and said, what do you think? And I said, absolutely. I love football. It was my whole life. I have friends today. Mike Sullivan's my best friend, and because of football. If I never played, I never would have met. And he had a great year, all league, didn't know it, and got injured the next year in varsity, got hit illegally. They didn't call it, but broke his collarbone. Again, something not major. And they're like, oh my guys, he'll recover from that. It's not going to affect the rest of his life. But he had the most enjoying world. And let's dive into that. The power of sports and injuries like that, and how it affects them, going forward as building that community of friends and maybe moving forward to college.
Yeah, so that's a great example. And I've had my own personal experience at a young age in high school, or right out of high school and freshman year of college, with an injury as well. So I understand how that can affect the psyche, how that can change one's course. It's a lot of times, especially for these younger athletes, it presents a hurdle of the magnitude of which they have never had to go through before. And so, here you are, potentially an untouchable athlete with super high level of skill, who maybe is, far and above his peers when it comes to talent. And then all of a sudden they get cut down by a fractured clavicle or a busted up knee. And now they're relegated to the sideline as an observer, where they've never been in that role before. And, that takes quite a toll on them mentally and physically. And that can sometimes change the course of their life. I mean, going forward, my example, I blew my knee out freshman year. Never was able to really do some of the sports that I had done growing up. Had to learn to adapt, try new things that would allow me to do it safely, so I don't re-aggravate or injure my knee further. And, in the case of his clavicle fracture there, your stepson, it probably kind of shook him a little bit and made him think like, well, if football isn't my thing, or if football's not going to work out, what else can I do? What else, and it allows them to kind of step back and kind of look in the perimeter and see like all these other things that have probably been going on around them that they've never really taken an interest in or really examined with a close eye. And sometimes it can lead to, career choices, circle of friends that they get involved with, choices that they make about their own health and stuff going forward where they never thought about it before. So it has a huge impact
down the road. Yeah. And I got to say, audience, the host, when he makes a mistake, I love it, because this is why you want to hire Brian. I called collarbone. It's really the clavicle. So I want to point that out. He picked that up right away.
Yeah, that's just 20 plus years of saying the anatomical names.
Exactly. And it's interesting because my dad always taught me, don't recreate the wheel. That's why go to you. Don't call me, my friend, and say, hey, what do I do about this injury? No. Don't try to do it yourself. Have an expert like you be part of this decision. One of my most interesting favorite questions that you gave me is, what is the worst injury you've ever seen in your career?
Man, there's been a lot, and I hate to say that because they're never pretty. I've seen some really bad breaks of bones that can look very scary at first glance, and sometimes they can be very serious with regards to the nature of the injury. And I don't forget, working in sports medicine, I also cover ER call and stuff too. So it's and we have general population of people that come in with orthopedic injuries, and these are not all sports injuries. So I've seen some pretty bad stuff. Without getting too graphic or into too much detail, I mean, I've seen a lot of bad things with motorcycle accidents. I've seen a lot of bad work injuries that occur with people on construction sites and heavy equipment. And sometimes it's very rare, but you can have a sports injury that almost resembles stuff like that. And it can be hard to tell that this happened on a field of play, not some highway accident or something like that. So it's rare, but sometimes you do get some really bad stuff like that. I would, the head injuries are always very scary, especially now with a lot of the new information we learned about with CTE and the lingering and long-term effects of concussions. So those have always been very scary. And those are always something that we're very, concerned about. And then, with what happened with Damar Hamlin a few years ago, where a guy goes into cardiac arrest on the field. I mean, those are always the most scariest situations for everybody that's involved, the healthcare providers as well. And a lot of times at that moment is when your training kicks in and you're purely going on adrenaline and just, basically, your body just remembers what to do from all the training you've done. And essentially you've kind of your mind is just on autopilot at that point. I've been lucky enough in my career to never have to have something serious like that happen on the field of play, but I've known people who have had it happen to their athletes that they were covering, and I've known athletes who've had it happen to them where they've gone into cardiac arrest and had to been revived. So it's been, and we've had some of those guests on the show. It's been pretty amazing stories. But yeah, I mean, I've kind of seen it all.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm going to ask you. You're a friend of mine now. I'm going to consider you a friend because I just love what you do. Is sports safe right now? Tough question, I know, but
I think it's never been safer. And it only grows safer with each passing year and with each passing decade and with each passing group of athletes that come through the system, so to speak. I mean, you look, wasn't that long ago that we were doing NFL training camp was 2-a-day practices still in the dead of summer, with very little break in between, no misting fans on the sideline. And you had guys like Corey Stringer die of heat stroke on the field with the Minnesota Vikings years ago. And that wasn't that long ago. So, and the whole concussion thing that we hear about, everything has gotten much safer. There's always going to be some level of risk in everything that we do, and athletics is not immune to that. But I think with changes in technology, with equipment, research that's been done to look at the effects of these injuries, the medically speaking, but also mechanically, how the equipment helps prevent them, and field surfaces and all that stuff, we've gathered a lot more information than we've ever had, and changes have been made to kind of help protect the safety of these athletes so that they can have much longer careers now than ever before. So yeah, I think sports is very safe.
answer I didn't think I was going to get, or I'm happy to get, because we talked about it earlier. I think sports is almost a must for every child to learn discipline and direction. And it just, if I am today because of the sports I played, not just the community I built. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure that's the same thing for you too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I prior to being a healthcare provider in the athletic world, I was an athlete, and that's what led me to choose my career path eventually as I got older. If it wasn't for sports, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah. So that passion for sports injuries came from when you played.
Yeah, as a high schooler, growing up as a kid up in New York, where I'm originally from, I hung around a circle of people and kids in my neighborhood. We all played something.
Yeah. Yeah. Sports too has gone to that direction of I'm not going to go this direction about participate. I just said it, participation trophies. There's controversy both ways, but what's your thoughts on learning to win and lose?
Oh, it's a must. It's a must. Uh, yeah. And every successful person will tell you this. They've definitely failed more than they've succeeded. And those lessons came from life, but you can easily learn those on the field of play or on the court as well. And those should not be altered or tweaked just to make kids feel good about themselves, um, because they lost a basketball game or whatnot. I think it's crucial to the development of our youth and young people to learn how to be just as good a loser as you are a winner. Because there's, like everybody says, there's going to be a lot of times in your life where you're going to be facing obstacles and hurdles, and you're not going to come out on top. You're not going to succeed and hit the goals you would set for yourself, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. You'll have plenty of ample times and opportunities to change your course and make improvements and do better next time. And athletics is a great way to teach that lesson.
That's so well said. It's a lesson that's hard. We need to get past it, but you saying that it's safer in your eyes, and you deal with athletes. That's why you're saying it's much different than me. I don't deal with athletes except for my podcast. So I love hearing that because of all the things that happen with sports. Let me ask you a personal question. Now I'm going to get personal. What does Brian do on a Friday night?
Geez, that varies depending on from week to week. Most Friday nights I'm with the family, spending good quality time. My daughter's in drawing class while my wife is running her Italian ice shop that she started her business last year. So we're a very much busy on the go family. I've got 2 children, so that's what we're doing most Friday nights. But if you ask me what I did last night, which was Friday night, I was a guest on a podcast live stream right here from Cornelius covering the NFL draft.
Yeah. And that's what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
And that's what you are now. You've launched this. You're still working your full-time gig, but you're building this business as we talked about. And I love that. That's because people, it's everybody's a little unique. I mean, their Fridays are always different. And there's no judge here. It's just, I want people to understand that Brian's human. He's got this skill set of helping you with sports injuries, but we're also human. We're not averse to being able to help. And I want to say this on the show about you doing pro bono when it fits. That's a servant's heart. That's why I'm glad you're on this show, because that's what we do. Brian can go out and do that. Is he losing money? I don't look at it that way. He's building universe currency where he's like, hey, I'm going to help your son, Steve. I'm not going to charge you. I'll spend 15 minutes, but the universe goes, Brian, kudos. Let's throw something your way. So I love that. With regards to everything that you do as an entrepreneur, and you've just launched this fairly recently, what lessons have you learned from working as I'll call it 8 to 5. I know you work more than that, but working in a job and now you're an entrepreneur. What lessons have you learned as a 8 to 5er now you take to be an entrepreneur?
Well, there's been a lot in a short period of time, and every day I'm picking up something new. I think the big thing for me has been just to really stay diligent, not be discouraged. If you don't get a client, if people reach out to you and they have a question and then you never hear from them again, or you give some advice, you say, okay, let's move forward with this. I think I can really help you, and then you get ghosted, right? And that's going to happen. And I'm not used to that because in my 9-to-5 job, it's an endless stream of patients that come through the door. And I don't have to worry about going outside and trying to recruit them to come in, or sending out flyers, or posting messages on social media. They find us. I'm having to go out and find people now, and that's been probably the toughest thing, but also the biggest lesson that I've learned is, you got to just stay steady, keep your nose to the grindstone, keep hammering away, putting word out there, meeting people like yourself, Steve, making connections, and just doing the best I can to offer up my services. And hopefully, once word gets out, people realize that I provide a service that's valuable, then things will kind of pick up, which I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and that's what you just said is all great. This is exactly what you need to do as an entrepreneur. The other thing that you do is you keep your 9-to-5 job.
Oh yeah, that's not going
Which
anywhere.
a lot of entrepreneurs, you'll find a time if there's that transition happens, you'll find that. And I have to apologize to you. And I'm so sorry. I said you work 8 to 5, so I added an hour to your schedule.
Well, to be honest, Steve, in this field, there is no such thing as 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. There are days where I could be there till 11 at night. There are some days where I'm there first thing in the morning, and there are days where I don't get home sometimes. So don't worry about it.
And you answer like I thought you would, because I want people to know, hey, this guy's got a heck of a work ethic. I relate to that. As an entrepreneur, you have to have that. Your 9 to 5, now your job does that, but most jobs are 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever that is. Again, nothing wrong with it, but if you're going to bridge over to an entrepreneur, you're going to work more hours, especially in the beginning.
Honestly, I feel like that, even though that my new venture doesn't really require me to be sitting in front of a computer, watching stock tickers or doing stuff like that round the clock, I'm always constantly checking for messages, checking social media, my accounts, making sure I haven't missed a message or a phone call or a text. I'm always looking for my contacts and saying, hey, checking in with them. How are we doing today? Have you heard anything from so-and-so? You got an athlete that I can help you with, or things like that. So it's always on my mind, and it's always, something that I try to get to throughout the day and all night, because as you know, we're on separate coasts. So I got to be available for the West Coast people. I got to be available for international people. And that clock just keeps going.
I'm glad you mentioned international, because I was thinking about that earlier in the show. Yeah, this is because jump on a Zoom. Here's my injury. You could do a consultation anywhere. I want to thank you for being on. This has been incredible, because I was able to cross my two favorite things, entrepreneur and sports. And I'm so excited for you. And you're going to succeed because you have a servant's heart. And audience, that's a big lesson you learn from Brian, is he's bringing value. And he knows something's going to happen, but just keep doing that and staying on top of your business, even when you're doing your other job. That's so valuable, those lessons. I appreciate it. How can people reach you? And let's talk about the name of the podcast again, so people can access it.
Yeah. So the podcast is called the Injured List Podcast. It's on all the major podcast platforms. I use my middle name, Brian Scott, as the host for the podcast, just to keep it separate from everything else that I do. With regards to the consulting business, it's called ILP Sports Consultants, and you can find that website, ilpsports.com. You can also follow me at Brian Maieli, or Brian Scott Maieli, on LinkedIn, and there I also have a connection to my ILP Sports Consultants LinkedIn page, where I have various information. I make some posts here and there. My website actually also has a video of me, in which I describe kind of my background, my history, my education, what the company's all about, and how I can help, athletes or people who are athletes navigate the current situation or a potential situation they might find themselves in.
Thank you so much. Audience, do me a huge favor. If you have an athlete, reach out to Brian. Just reach out to him via the LinkedIn, the website, send him a message. Say hello. But if you have a quick question about injury, I want him to meet as many athletes, high school, college, pro, doesn't matter where your athlete is. I mean, I would think somebody like a 10-year-old ballerina that does ballet, that has foot, things like that you can help with too, right?
Steve, I can work with anybody. I can work with any budget. I actually, all my initial consultations are usually no more than 15 minutes, and those are free. And that's a good place to start, because there are some cases, Steve, and I'll be honest, where I might not be able to help you. Yeah. Or, you might be on the right path, and I don't really have much more to offer. But we won't know that unless we have a conversation. So all my first consultations are free, 15 minutes, sometimes even longer if we need to be there longer. but I don't ever ask for money up front. I don't ever charge for anything. I need to know what the story is. I need to hear the information before I can tell you whether or not I'm going to be able to provide any services for you and value to you. So everything at the beginning is let's just get a conversation going and see if we can work together.
The servant's heart keeps pumping away there. Brian, I appreciate that. Because that's what you should do if you're an entrepreneur. That's a great lesson. Offer always a free discovery call, because you got to find out who that person is. An audience, as I always say with the podcast, it's got the reverse and forward button. Me and Brian want you to watch the whole show or listen to the whole show. But if you can't, and 6 or 7 minutes of it make a difference in your life, listen to it over and over again. 6 minutes out of your life could change your life. We'd be so happy if we made a change in your life or helped you in any way with this podcast and this show. Also, don't forget about my TV show every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. It's called Together We Serve. It's on Apple, Roku, and all the streaming services, as well as put your business, doing business with a servant's heart logo and words on your chest and your head. Wear a hat, wear a logo, wear a hoodie. Share this message out to the world, because I guarantee you, if we start sharing this message out, I've already seen it in my world, this world will change and tilt to the good. And we always say, thank you, me and Brian, for watching and listening to this episode. We'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.